Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Self Love Show. You might be noticing that my beautiful sweet sister here, Dawn, is not here. So let's give her some love and twinkles on her little vacation. I hope you're having a good time. ah, Welcome back and thank you for showing up. As with always, we are so happy to be here. If you want to find us on Spotify or Apple Podcast or YouTube, or Facebook or Instagram or Twitch, wherever you might want to listen to this show or watch it, it's there. And I'll start putting the links down below here in a moment. And today we have the most amazing guest who I've just been having the nicest conversation with behind the scenes. Sometimes we should probably record those because they're so juicy and so sweet. And I'm really excited to introduce Massimo Rigotti. So, hi.
Hello. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, welcome. So let's just jump right in and talk about what we're talking about today. So I'll read the show description to you so you know what's going on. The confidence connection, an overlooked ingredient for overcoming addiction. This talk delves into the intricate connection between confidence and addiction recovery, showcasing how the S.O.B.E.R method serves as a guiding framework. Massimo provides practical guidance, thank goodness, as a guiding framework on how you're providing guidance, on how each element of the methodology, Stoic principles, self-observation, behavior modification, execution of positive habits, and the holistic restoration can empower individuals on their journey to sobriety. And for any of you who have struggled with sobriety or who have gone through any of these types of things, whether it's emotional sobriety or like chemical sobriety, this practical application is the hardest part. Key topics include the Stoic philosophy component of the S.O.B.E.R method that can help shift mindsets, the importance of self-observation and recognizing triggers and patterns, behavior modification techniques to break destructive habits, the execution of positive habits and their role in building confidence, and the holistic restoration of comprehensive healing. I'm excited. This is going to be fun. The confidence connection is not just a talk. It's a testament to the indomitable human spirit, guided by the S.O.B.E.R method and the boundless possibilities of transformation, whether you're personally battling addiction, supporting a loved one through recovery, or seeking to understand the profound impact of confidence and the S.O.B.E.R method. Massimo's journey offers a message of hope, healing, and unwavering belief that confidence can lead to profound personal change. Ooh, I'm really excited.
Thank you, Trish.
Yeah. We had a conversation a little bit earlier about living in California
Oh, yes.
and how both of us kind of got swept away in not just sort of, this availability to like drink in the world, like it's actually really promoted. Drinking is actually very promoted, smoking cigarettes as well, and all of these other things. And like, but when we got to California, we both stepped in to a little bit of a drug addiction.
Oh, yeah.
Really want to talk about, let's just launch into the social pressures of having a good time.
Yeah, boy. And when you're in that situation, you do want to have a good time. And it appears everyone around you is having the most amazing time when in fact they're all suffering. And that's the reason that they're just taking this blunt instrument to anything else that would give them a great thought. And, hindsight gives you the ability to see that and look at it in myself and saying, I was just so miserable and so horrible inside and with no confidence. And so that's why these drugs, and as you said, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, that was definitely where it was at in my time in Los Angeles, for sure.
I know, one of the things after that I've learned about while being sober is just how much people are really uncomfortable with uncertainty.
Mhm.
So, you know, even in high school, I knew that I was like, I want I want a class called coping mechanisms because I was like, I already knew that like it was all messed up. I already knew things were like not right. And I just kept looking around and being like, there are people here who are just running. They're running
Mhm.
from uncomfortable feelings, they're running from their problems, they're running from actually being honest with themselves. And that's a lot of, one of the reasons why I ran was those types of things. I had a lot of really scary, dangerous things happen to me in, early in my teens and stuff. And I just didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't feel like I had any friends around who could actually hold the traumas that I experienced. And I also had an undiagnosed ADHD, right? So here I am just trying to figure out how to live in the world that's not made for me.
Yeah, yeah. And I can relate to that completely as well. Although at 18 I was diagnosed as bipolar, I completely just disregarded that. No, I'm fine. And proceeded to just go down this road for the next 23 years trying to tell everybody, "No, I'm fine." I had people actually ask me many times over that time period, "Is there anything wrong with you? I mean, you seem really manic right now." I'm like, "No, what are you talking about? I'm fine. I haven't slept in 5 days. Leave me alone." But and you said something very interesting. I want to come back to very quickly because I think that a lot of people are afraid to sit alone with their own thoughts,
Yeah.
and we have developed a society where it's not really possible unless you take that effort to do it, to actually sit alone and think about what is going on, what do I really want. You just, and then you get the overload like we both did in California, where you're able to have 24-hour a day fun if that's what you want to do. And why wouldn't you want to do that? And so it was really easy to just, get on the fun train and not get off.
Well, that's the thing is like I think that the fun train, I like where you're going here. The fun train, it's because I've thought about this a lot. It's not like it's a California problem.
No.
I think it's a place where there's thoughts and ideas and like the desire to kind of push the mental edge.
Mhm.
Lots of college towns and places where there's people who are wanting to seek out a larger mental and emotional scope. And I was like, oh, and when I went to started going to festivals and stuff, that's where I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's so much that I can learn about spirituality or about life or about psychology or about myself," and I kinda got caught in that trap of sort of, we'll call it a false confidence. Like, I
Exactly.
saw these people doing these things that were really amazing and, like, they were burlesque dancers or belly dancers, or they had all this amazing stuff, and they were popular, and I was like, I grew up in a tiny town in Montana, like like, I didn't see any of that, like, I didn't have access. I mean, don't worry, I had access to all of those things too, but I also didn't really have, like, it wasn't boosted, it wasn't, like, a good thing, like, if you were doing drugs, you were like, "Whoa, yo," but here, it's like people were really like, "Hey, you're cool."
Mhm.
And I didn't quite gather the what was happening behind the scenes and still until I started to take a big step back and I started going to therapy and working on my own traumas and like started to look at those like, wait, my confidence sucks. Like there is none. There is no confidence. And
Yeah.
I really started to look back and was like, oh, they don't have it either. They're just putting on a front.
Yep. Yep. You nailed it. And I think that the reason that it appears even so strong that they have that confidence is because you're on your own adventure, right? And so as you said, you're kind of skating that line of on the intellectual level of trying to find something new and learning new things. And so you think, oh, this is such a great thing for me. And I'm getting someplace in my own, whatever destination, but you don't really have a destination. And that's where you really have have confused your whole entire thinking here, because you want to believe that you're doing this because you're going to achieve something, but you haven't set that goal. And because you haven't set that goal, you end up just back again on that fun train. You're having a good time, you're still on, you think you're learning stuff. You probably are. I mean, because I look back on, I learned a lot in that time period. Exactly. But it's probably not the best use of your youth.
You know what? I agree. I'm not arguing that. I did learn stuff, and I also, I think that some of it. Let's talk about. I warned you. Let's talk about the sort of like the social program
Uh-huh.
of confidence and relationships and this types of things. And for all of you listening who've been here for a while, I know you've heard this before, but I'm gonna just keep digging in because at least 7 times. I'm just gonna keep telling you at least 7 times, wherever you start on this journey with us. So for someone who really looks at the sociological perspective and someone who's really looking at sort of this social cultural understanding of how did we get here? Not only in the US, but I kind of like to look at kind of the global idea of what it looks like. So we have before talked about sort of these like government or cultural or societal imposed gender roles where women are meek and I have to be some sort of way to get ahead in the world. I have to look a certain way. I have to do these certain things, which men are also have this particular very, very strict gender role structure around how to move in the world and what they're allowed to think and feel and actually go after. So we're developing globally this idea that your authenticity and the things that you're naturally drawn to are bad and wrong and you won't be loved for them. And so then that kind of for many, many years gets kind of like pressed down upon my great grandparents and your great grandparents and their grandparents and and then we get down to our family members and our parents teaching us the way that they know how to live. And then we go out in the world and we're bombarded with ideas of how we're supposed to be, not only in like school, but in like the places that we find friends and our little communities. And that's how we start building our personality. So when we get to our teen years and we're like, oh man, nothing feels good because our hormones are crazy. And then we're now like, we have got all this just programming and conditioning that we're like, now what do you do with it? So this is why in our 20s, we're like, what in the world are we doing? And nobody really, like, there's not a lot of mentorship in the world where it's like, you know what? Let me tell you a thing. I got you. And so, of course, confidence doesn't really, many of us don't have confidence. We don't just like wake up in our 20s feeling confidence or feeling confident or feeling good in our bodies unless we had incredibly supportive people around us who nurtured our authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely. But how do you get there?
I
Right?
don't know, Massimo. How do you get there?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, what you said is absolutely correct. And so that's a real struggle. And I see it all the time. I have a lot of friends that are in their early 20s. And so I have that kind of unique view. And you shared with me that you have kind of an open outlet at the moment to some of the same age group. And so that it creates a kind of an interesting perspective on looking back at where I was at that time period and how I had no confidence whatsoever. And so I leaned into every possible substance. Well, what confidence is at the end of the day is that it's the raw ability to walk into a room, not change anything about what you're doing except what you want to do. So in any situation, are you doing what you want to do? Yes, I'm doing what I want to do. Okay, I'm confident. I ask myself that question all the time. If I walk into a room and it's all strangers, I take a quick inventory of the room. We all do this. And then I proceed to go to talk to somebody that I think looks interesting. If the conversation is like, I'm like, Is this good? Am I doing what I want to do? No, I'm not. All right. It was nice meeting you. Next person. That's confidence. What generally you won't do in that situation, and what unconfident approach looks like, is you'll continue talking to this one person that you don't have anything in common with, because you're afraid to go and talk to anybody else because you've latched on to this one person. That carries over into relationships. It's the same thing. Let's just boil it all down. You meet somebody, you talk with them a little bit, you have a very little in common with them, but you've managed to attract this one person that likes me. Oh, I'm going to hold on to it, right? Oh, I'm so excited. I've got this one person that finally likes me. And it just is going to turn out poorly for the same reason, because you're not confident that you could attain anyone else's affection. And so you're going to not behave well in a relationship where you're not confident, the other person is not confident, and that blows out into the world at large. So when you see someone on stage that really takes all of your attention from you, that person that is talking to you is confident, because they're making that personal connection with you, because you can feel confidence. You can't, it's hard to define confidence, but I guarantee you know at the moment you see it.
Yeah. Well, it's coming from, I used this word before, it's coming from your authenticity. It's like,
Yes.
so for me, looking back, and I'll use the example of these freaking amazing, brilliant kids that I go to school with. I have some like 20, 22-year-old friends that I don't know, I can't tell you how much it like bursts my heart to hang out with them. I mean, I'm having a moment that I've never had before in my whole life, and I'm just like, ah! I can like feel myself just screaming like, yeah, I'm so excited on the inside, because it's just, I just love them. And when I see them in their struggles, which are the same struggles that you and I went through, and they're just trying to find themselves, and they're just trying to like figure out how to do it right without so much pressure. And we go to a really strict school with they have some really strict parents. And I just like sit there and watch them, and I'm like, I've got some things for you. And some nuggets, you just want to like, I'll just talk it out with you. Anyway, but when I'm sitting there watching them in their world, and I'm relating to my past, and I'm just sitting there thinking about like, it's just that I didn't know who I was. Not that you need to know that to have confidence, but I didn't, it's not like who I am, like who I am now, but it's like who I was then. And then, your authenticity is going to shift and change throughout your life. And so
Yes.
I wish someone would have just sat me down and been like, all right, let me help you define you for you from your side.
Mhm.
And that would have been really helpful to have just some reflection back, because in my 20s, um I
Yeah,
like
it's helpful right now too. I mean,
I know, I'm just teasing. But it's like someone to just sit me down in that moment, and to just help me see where I was me.
mhm.
Because I had wanted to be someone else so badly, because that's what I thought that I needed to do. Because I had that programming that I wasn't good enough. So when I walked into a room just like that, I was like, just one friend. And now, like as I'm living in my integrity, which is how I believe it is, when I'm walking and living my values in such a way that when I make a mistake, I am the first to take accountability, and to really show up, and to not make it not make my harm someone else's problem but mine.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when I show up in that way now, like, that's confidence. Like, I can walk into a room, not know anybody, and not really feel the vibe, and be like, "Yeah, I don't wanna be here," and
Yeah.
just make that choice, because it doesn't mean anything about me as a human being. And that
Right.
is what I would like to just tell all of these kids, you know?
Yeah. 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 No, that's so true. What you said there at the end about walking in the room and just walking away. It's kind of like the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a I think we all know the title. Are you familiar with the book?
Which one?
The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great book. And that it really that comes into play here again in confidence. It's just going about it in a different direction. And integrity, as you just said, it's coming about the same thing from a different direction. We're all saying the same thing, which is your authentic self, being true to yourself. If you know who you are, then everything else will just naturally fall into place in your life. Yeah. And I think that that's the hardest thing to really find and discover. But that takes that self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And what is so difficult for me to watch in today's, well, people my own age and older have the same problem, is that they can't put down their devices. And that struggle is real for a lot of people. And when you reach that point, there's no hope that you're ever going to have a reflective thought about anything that's going on with you internally. You're just going from dopamine hit to dopamine hit.
Yeah. Well, it's also designed to do that for you.
Oh, yeah. It's very effective at doing it. Do not put me down. Do not go to sleep.
I know.
We all do it. I mean,
their scientists are incredibly powerful, and they do a lot of amazing research to get you to do that. Like,
yeah.
All right. But I love where you're going here, is that it takes time to just sit with. And, you know, if I had some advice for these kids now, is to see what truly lights you up. You know, I got caught in this thought, follow your bliss. And I didn't quite understand what that meant, and it's changed over the years. It wasn't like just follow dopamine hit to dopamine hit, or inhibitive, disinhibited like behaviors. It wasn't like that. I wasn't, you know, it was more like there are things that really truly light you up and really truly are part of my makeup. You know, like whatever I like, the things that I was like, yes, that I just want to dive into it, that are part of who I am. So when people are like, oh, you're so nice, I was like, oh, that is actually part of me, you know. And to really like sit down and reflect on those bits is the most helpful thing I think a 20-year-old person, or a 40-year-old person, or a 60 or an 80 or a 90-year-old person could do, is just to be like, oh, what do people say about me?
Mm-hmm.
To my face, and what do people say about me behind my back? You know, because those are reflections. They don't have to mean anything specifically about me. But also just to see how I'm showing up in the world. One last thing is, I had a partner some years ago that said, oh no, did I lose it? He would say this thing is like, oh, who am I that my world is? And I sat and I thought about that for a long time. It's like, and it really did. Who am I that I'm showing up in the world? Like, how am I showing up for others? And what does it look like?
Yes.
Not
Yes.
like I need to take on everyone's ideas and identity, but just to see, like, if I think I'm a good person and people are like, you are awful. Is there any, like, and if multiple people are saying that, I'm like, maybe I should look at that thing, because there's something there that I can't see. Do you have any advice on
Well, yeah, it's like having your own personal line spot to who you are and what you really are. So, I mean, if we were talking strictly on relationships, this would be a congruence test. You're testing to see whether what somebody says they are, right? Of like, you meet somebody new, they say they're all these great things. Well, you're not sure if they are. So you start testing to see if they are those things. And if they aren't, then you toss them. And you have to turn the mirror on yourself and say, I think these things, and I think that I'm these things. Let me just do a quick self-test on myself. How would I react to this particular thing? And I walk through a lot of this in the S step of my method, which is Stoicism. So Stoicism requires that reflectiveness, asking that hard question about yourself. This is what I believe about it. Now, how do I react in the world? Do I react the way that I just said I believe? No, I don't. Okay, why am I not doing that? And that why will take you into a really deep thought process. And there might be things that from your past that have caused you to react differently than you believe that you are reacting. And that's what's kind of difficult. I think we all get caught up in believing we're good people or believing that we're doing certain things. And yet, if we really stop to think about it, they don't match. I would say that almost all of us do not match what we believe we are and what we are doing. And the closer that you can get those two things together, the happier you're going to be, number one. And number two, the more confident you're going to be. And number three, the more people are going to like you. It's just amazing because you will show up as you, and people will see that, and they will gravitate towards that. And everything will just kind of naturally fall in place. But again, goes back, requires that reflection. And if you're not doing that, you're not going to get any place.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the hard part, right? Right. This right here is like the sitting in the discomfort, because many of us
Yes.
have an intolerance to sitting with in uncertainty, an intolerance to uncertainty in general, and to really sit with the idea that we can be harmful, or we can be not great people. And sometimes when I think about this, like, this is how I coach my people when they come to, I mostly, so my practice is mostly coaching middle-aged men who want to, like, really drop into their dignity. So they're probably going through a midlife crisis. They don't know why their life is showing up the way it is. They've done all the things that they're supposed to do, and they still are unhappy. And so when we start sort of looking at their life and how they know themselves, if they've ever reflected, do they know how to feel? Can they empathize? They're like, oh, I didn't learn any of those skills. But one of the things, when they realize how much harm they've caused in their life, it can cause a couple things, right? They go into a deeper depression, or they block it out and they're like, no, I could never be that. Or they meet it. I mean, there's other things that they can do, but I'm just generalizing. And one of the things that, when you really start looking at how you're out of integrity, or where you're not living your values, and things are, you're not in congruence with yourself, is to remember that these were strategies that you created as children to get your needs met. So oftentimes when I'm looking at someone and they're doing whatever it is that they're doing in the world, and I'm like, that is a really interesting strategy to get your needs met. And it's okay. And guess what? You're smart enough to build new strategies. And that's why we're here, right? So it's one of the, like, empathy practices of, like, wow, I didn't know that this people pleasing technique that I cultivated as being socialized as a woman, and being in a family that kind of guilted you for whatever you add your family guilt. Like, they guilted you for God knows what. You need to take care of the family, or whatever it was, that the projection of you need to conform or contort outside of your authentic desire. And that is what love is. Love is the, we'll call it, so we're taught that love is conformity, self-sacrifice, and really just doing what the other person wants, when really love to me is the radical acceptance of what is right now. Can I radically accept you and show up and be honest and authentic with myself and with you, without needing to fix you or change you, but choose how the proximity that I am to you, depending on if we're both healthy together. And so one of those things is, like, really looking at the strategies. What are your strategies to get your needs met? Because
Yeah.
that'll help with your confidence as well. What are your strategies to get your needs met? If you're all out there in the world, write some things down, like.
That's really important. And boy, I love your description of what love really is. I mean, because you're not going to find true love until you're your authentic self all the time. If you're putting a mask on, like I did for most of my life, you're never going to have that authentic connection with another. And then when it hits the fan, you are going to find out very quickly who really cares about you and who doesn't. And in my case, I found out that 99.99% of the people that I thought loved me did not. They were just there for the gravy train, because I was the guy that was always taking people out and having a good time with, and I was that good time guy. Everybody wanted to be around me because you were going to have fun. And then when I couldn't provide that, I was left with 3 or 4 people in my life.
Yeah.
From literally hundreds to 3 or 4 people. And that says a lot. And I think if any of us, anyone listening, would really stop and think about the people that truly show up for you. Who are you the most you around? Those people, if they accept you and you're the most you around, those are the people that love you the most.
That's the truth.
And you don't think about it that way, and you never think about it that way, but it's the truth.
And a lot of the time we don't allow people to love us. We show them a mask so they fall in love with a mask. Like when you go on your dates and you're like on your best behavior, like, I mean, please be on your best behavior. Don't be a whatever, don't be bad people in the world. Treat people with respect and kindness. But when we present ourselves with a mask and we are like posturing, that's what, like, people will take you for that. They'll be like, oh, this is who that person is. And they'll fall in love with that. And so when you can't hold the facade for whatever reason it is, that's when they're going to be like, oh, or when they like are sick or having a bad day or doing their thing and they can't hold the facade, then you're going to see the real them. Honestly, y'all, just being authentic right up front and letting people self-select out as, if you're just, you don't have to like keep any stories or any lies. You can just let them love you for who you are. And it also gives them permission to be themselves as well. They're like, wow, you're weird. I can be weird too.
Yes, exactly. That is so true. Yes.
Oh, I think you just want to be weird.
Oh, I love being weird. I am weird. I know. I know I'm weird, and I love the fact that I am. I also know that anyone who actually talks to me enjoys my weirdness. So,
Same. It's the same. And guess what? When we talk to people, it's probably like, they're like, wow, I can be weird too. And this idea, right, of being weird, it's like, again, we're coming back to this program or this conditioning around like, you've got to be a certain way to get your needs met. Guess what? I think we both, I'm going to speak for you. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we both can agree that when you're authentic and when you're real, you can still get your needs met.
I think you get your needs met more and with deeper satisfaction. I'm going to like slightly disagree with you there. I think that it actually is much more fulfilling. Yes. Because what you see is that authentic self that you're giving, you get it right back.
Yes.
And so that mirror that you took to yourself to try to change you and try to make yourself more authentic, that now becomes an open door. And that person that you're looking at that's not you is more authentic to you. And that is also amazing. I'll tell you what else happens is that people are a lot more honest with you, which is so fantastic, because I think we spend so much time. We're not confident. We'll take this right back to confidence here for a second. Most of us are not confident enough to have the hard conversations with others. When someone disrespects us, or when someone makes us feel bad, or when we know we did something wrong to someone else. I'll give an example. This one totally blew my mind. I recently had my 30th high school reunion and I decided to go. What the heck, right? I go back and of course I don't recognize almost everybody, but everybody seemed to recognize me because I haven't really changed that much. and so that made it difficult because I'm like, oh, hi. And you are, anyway, but getting through all that, somebody said something to me about my past, that because when I was, getting in a lot of trouble, I got arrested a few times. And so the comment was about hanging out with a criminal. Probably shouldn't stand here and talk to you because I might go to jail. And I just laughed. I thought it was hilarious, right? Okay. About 3 weeks later, I get this message on Facebook apologizing to me because they felt really horrible about what they had said.
Oh.
And it caught me off guard because I laughed it off in the moment, thinking that's great. He feels comfortable and confident enough in our old friendship from high school that he can say something like that to me. And so I thought it was great. And then it further cemented how good of an individual he was, because he had the confidence to come back and apologize for something because he had stopped to think about how it might impact his feelings. And I thought that was really great. It really was a unique kind of case to show me that being authentic gets it back.
I love that. And I also fully agree. It's just it feels incredibly freeing to actually just live true to who you are now
Yes.
and to
Mm-hmm.
change and to allow yourself to change. Oh, I love that story. Hey, so I'm curious, do you have a practice that you'd like to take our listeners or viewers through?
Yeah, well, I definitely can do that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So I, it's kind of crazy that you say this. So this week on all my social media channels, which is at S.O.B.E.R Method, I decided to do a 5 minutes to sober on my shorts this week. So it's kind of crazy because let me just tell you a little bit about the S.O.B.E.R method. So the S.O.B.E.R method stands for Stoic, Observe, Behavior, Execute, and Restore. And so it's a 5-step process that works like the Deming cycle for any of you out there that know continuous improvement cycles or plan, do, check, act. You're working to continuously improve yourself. So this starts with the deep reflection, starting in the Stoicism and the philosophy. And we've already kind of touched on that, looking at the mirror. So this week, I chose for this little 5 minutes to sober was that things naturally gravitate towards their goal. So whatever you put forth in life, that's literally the line from Meditations, Marcus Aurelius. So things naturally gravitate towards their goal. Whatever it is, whatever goal you have, you're going to gravitate. So if you don't have a goal, you're going to naturally gravitate towards nothing. So it's important to actually have a goal in place. I stepped even further back in this reflection and I thought, okay, if in my past, because I've been sober almost 8 years now, it'll be 8 years of this Saturday, and this is part of that continuous improvement upon myself and continuing to look back and seeing how I can improve. But I'm using this example from the past. So my goal used to be just have a good time. So what did that look like? What was the type of observation I can make about myself? And that would be in step 2. So the observation I make of myself here is that in order to have a good time, I went out to the bar at least 5 nights a week. That's not productive. So my goal was to have fun, have this great time. And so that's what I would do. Now, the next step in this, in looking at that behavior, is how can I adjust this behavior to actually improve myself? Probably don't want to have fun all the time. It's not going to get me anywhere in life. I might have a lot of fun, but it's not actually going to produce anything positive long term. So in this particular case, as I was going through it, I decided for the heck of it, I was going to get a certification in marketing for Google. So I enrolled myself, and those nights that I was going to the bar, I started instead trying to focus on this marketing certificate, and I ultimately got it. So that was a behavior change. And then the E step in this and executing is that this overall testing behavior. Anytime I wanted to go to the bar, I'm like, no, I got to hit the books. I gotta study. I have a test that I have to pass. And so that going through that motion and executing. Now, let's say it didn't work. One night I got so tempted, I had to go to the bar. Well, what happened? So we return back to that observation step and we look, what was happening that day? What did I get into an argument with somebody? What was the set off point that was different? So what am I going to change next time? We're going back to the behavior step. Okay, next time that this happens, instead of succumbing to whatever I was attacked with, I'm going to remind myself that my goal is to ultimately get this marketing certificate. I go back, I execute. Eventually, I finish that certificate, and then we hit ourselves and we're in our restore step. The restore step in the sober method is about completing this holistic improvement that you've made upon yourself. So in this case, I set a natural goal to get rid of a bad behavior. So what I need to do here is look at any other items that I'm doing that I need to improve upon and get a goal set. If I have anything in my other activities that need a goal, that's what I need to look through, and I need to write all this down. Writing is a big component of all of this. So also finally in this step is about the natural forgiveness. We have the all the 10-step programs out there. We have forgiveness and going back and trying to make right. So the way that I approach this in this step and teach this is that think about any time where your old goal came sideways with somebody else and you hurt somebody else for some reason. Then I want you to pick up the phone or send a DM, however it is. And I always encourage it. It may sound foolish to some people, but if it's possible, get a coffee with somebody. Sit down for 30 minutes. Almost everybody will take you up on getting a coffee with them. I can tell you right now that my success rate in doing this is very, very high, 90 percentile. Sit down. You don't need to restore and completely make this relationship like, oh, we're best friends again. Oh, yay, exciting. No, the point of this is to put the past behind you and move on. Hug it out, say goodbye, never see them again. Anybody that was in your life when you were doing these bad things, when you were using drugs, alcohol, whatever your vice was, you've outgrown them. And it's time to look at yourself as this new individual that needs new, people, surroundings, everything around you needs to be in furtherance of your new goal. So that's a very, very brief look at how the sober method works. And at this point, you would then go back to your Stoic step and you would, I recommend starting with meditations because it's freely available. And I like anything that the entry bar to success for individuals is as close to free as possible because we're stressing getting sober. And so the least amount you can spend, the better, I think. Go back, find a new passage that relates to you, reflect on it, see how it looks in your life, change the behavior, execute, test it out. Does this work? Does it not work? And I'll tell you something that is really interesting and extreme in my case that I have found success just in the last year and a half. And I think it really puzzles those that are most close to me and who have been around me since the beginning, back years and years ago. I am capable of actually walking into a bar now and having a good time with others and drinking a water on the rocks, and I put a lime in it. And I'll have a good time. And everybody's like, man, I want what you're having. I'm like, it's water on the rocks. And the reason I point that out is that I'm able to do that because I have firmed myself up so strongly in my confidence that I no longer need that drink to feel like I'm okay hanging out with all these other people that still require a drink to have a good time. So anyway, that's my quick little spiel, Trish.
I'm right here.
Yeah, there you are. Hopefully that gives everybody a little bit of a background. And then every day I put out a short every day on Sober Method on all my socials, tips and walk you through. I do Monday through Friday, S.O.B.E.R. And then on the weekends I do reflection and other tips to try to get you there. So I'm hoping to help anybody that is willing to listen.
All right, let me put those in. So I'm going to follow Massimo on all these socials. And you can find him on @SoberMethod anywhere. So that's what Instagram, Facebook,
TikTok, YouTube. You name it.
All right.
Thank goodness there are platforms out there where will post all of them for you, because I'm sure you have been around long enough to remember when it used to be one at a time. Oh, now I gotta go. Now I gotta. Oh, now I gotta. Now I luckily can record one video and hit post, and it goes to everyone.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good.
Yeah.
What I like about your method is that it really addresses the depth of who we are,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when it's not just being like sober as in sobriety, you know, but
Yeah.
it also could probably work likely with people who aren't sober and who want to take a deeper look at the self. Um,
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I am so glad you brought that up for two reasons. First of all, when my first book came out about a year ago, Flavors of Confidence, I got a letter from a reader who told me they had used my method to curb their device addiction. And
yeah.
I was like, what are you talking about? This is about, alcohol and drugs, and what do you, I was completely caught off guard. But then I really started to think about it, and I crafted in my second book, which is Sober Method, which is all method. I would say it's akin to like the big book from AA,
Mhm.
and this is your guide. And I actually included a chapter on device addiction. So anyone out there struggling to put that phone down, I have some kind of pointers and tips and tricks in there. And I'm working on a study right now with some volunteers and working through what'll be my third book specifically on device addiction, because it's all about having that healthy relationship with things. And and I feel that way even in sobriety. My method doesn't stress like others do. It's like, I want you to go sober tomorrow, cold turkey. No, I want you to measure yourself down. If you're drinking, a bottle of hard liquor a day, well, let's try to see if we can get it down to half a bottle by the end of next month. And maybe we can get it down to one drink a day in 6 months. It's about the relationship with yourself that lessens the need to numb whatever pain you have, or to allow yourself to operate with what you believe. And I'm going to kind of steal from you're saying earlier, is that in the confines of what society makes us believe that we need to be. And that's why so many of us lean into these substances. And that's what you really need to walk back from. And as you get that strength in looking deep within yourself, you're going to find you need these things less and less. And then, all that time that you spend doing wasting basically in drinking, you're going to find something else that you really are passionate about. And you're going to find that blissful thing like Trish did. And you're going to be able to move in a whole new direction in life. And it'll be amazing. It really will. Every one of you out there, whether you're sober now or not, can benefit from this, because it will build your confidence just from the reflective aspects of the program.
Absolutely. And I love that approach to walking it back, because I do think that cold turkey isn't the most helpful for a lot of people a lot of the time. After working in heroin detox clinics, I was like, oh, that's really dangerous. Like people die going cold turkey because they
Eh,
really.
I did. I was dead for over 6 minutes. So I mean, yeah, it's. I had my own near death experience. I do not recommend this. Uh, and I was very lucky that I had the third grand mal seizure in detox um, while I was in a hospital, or I most certainly would not be here right now. I can tell you that much. Yeah,
So glad you're here right now to help everyone walk through to a better life, because your work is so needed. You're brilliant.
thank you, Trish. Thank you.
Before we wrap up, I'd love to understand a little bit more about one of the steps, and it's like the holistic restoration.
Mhm.
Can we talk a little bit about that? What do you
Sure, sure. I mean, I barely touched on it there at the end because I was just trying to get back to the fact that this is a never stop.
Yeah.
But that restorative step is just, it's got to be mind, and it has to be body and spirit, and all of those things have to come together in that final step. Whatever, I mean, so many of us are not in good health. That for me, restoring my good health, I became a competitive figure skater. I know, crazy. Um, so that brought in so much for me because it, as a sport, it required me, it checked off a lot of these elements. It requires mind focus. When I'm on the ice, I can't think about anything except where every single part of my body is at all times, or else I'm not going to land a jump, you know? And I don't know if you've seen ice skates before, but that's not a lot of surface area to land a jump on. So you really have to be in the moment. The spiritual aspect of it, you know, whether you are religious or have no religion, you're still a spiritual being, and you still need to find some higher calling or something that you feel is, you're basically, you need to be beholden to something, and whatever that is, you need to find that for you.
Mhm.
And anything is good, just as long as you know that there is a purpose higher than yourself that is looking at you at all times, and that bringing that into your existence is so important. And the and then the mind piece of this is just growing. You're already building and growing yourself mentally by going through this exercise, because you're doing thinking that otherwise you never would have done. And any thinking at any level is good for you. You know, any explorative thought is growing your brain, and any brain growth is positive, because here's what happens. That embrace, all these three things I just talked about. Now, if you embrace and bring those things into your life, you will find new experiences out of that. And as those happen, that growth happens, and you'll find that again, it's restoring yourself across all fields. I mean, I really, it's difficult to explain, but once you experience it, honestly, it's better than any high I got from drugs.
And you know, thinking and learning and growing is also keeping mental plasticity. So
Yeah, exactly. I knew you'd bring the science angle in for me.
I know I'm melting over my brain over some science over here, so you all get it too.
Well, that's good. I mean, that was the whole point here. In the pre-show, everyone, we were talking about how this would be a good meld of science and practical. You know, Trish is bringing the science, and I'm bringing the real world. I've been beaten over the head a few times with a shovel.
Oh, I relate to that. Um, it sounds like this particular part is the integration part
Yeah.
of the work, and it's the really like the holistic integration bit, and I love that. I also love that you picked up competitive figure skating.
Yeah.
I've recently picked up bachata and was like, I had the thought, I was like, maybe I'd compete someday, and I was like, never have I thought that ever.
Do it. Totally do it.
All
I
right, I'll
mean,
write you in some time in a couple years and be like, guess what? Here's an invitation.
well, you know what, Trish, you don't know this about me, but I can tell you right now. And if anyone who is a friend of mine is watching right now, they will attest in a chat that I will show up for you. What if you get in a competition and you write me a letter and say, "Hey, I'm in this competition," I will be there. I will be there as your biggest super fan for sure.
All right. Okay, super fan. I'm writing you down. What I do want to know is just a last couple questions. I was like, we hit on purpose,
Mhm.
like a higher purpose. And I know some people think that that has a name that has like a three-letter word name. And then, but I also want to talk a little bit to end on how How does one find their purpose?
Mm.
I know
Wow.
this is a longer conversation, and we could just roll into another show. Maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like that could be a show in and of itself. I mean, and I would love that. But a teaser on that would be your purpose is going to find you is really what it is. Um, you if you're open to what the universe brings you, then it will naturally find what you should be doing because it's going to be the crossroads of totally obscure, never thought you would be doing it. And I have all the talent to do this totally well. That's where you're going to come together. And you can sit around and say, oh, yeah, I think that I should do this. This would be a good purpose in life. That's not how it comes about. It just doesn't. It's almost like being struck by lightning. It comes about in strange ways, very strange ways. I mean, and if you feel that we have like 3 to 4 more minutes here, I can kind of tell you how I landed on this purpose. All right. So I'll be as brief as possible here. Some people, if they've read my bio, know this, but about 10 years ago, I met Samantha Allison Thomas on a beach in Destin, Florida. I was on vacation and she was on spring break, and we became an instantaneous pair. I mean, it was I don't even know. I really it was just one of those things where you meet somebody and you just like, this is my person. This is where it's at. And so ultimately, I became homeless about 9 months after we met and were seeing each other. She was still in college and I was on the street. I didn't have a phone. I was eating out of dumpsters. It was not a good life. I don't recommend it. But I made it through her love and affection and care. She was determined to see that I got sober. She could not. I think she was digging around in my brain trying to figure out things. To be honest with you, she was a psychiatry major, and I think that I was probably a little bit of fun to try to test things out on as well. But you don't do those things for somebody if you don't really care about them. And I saw that. I felt it. And she was still there for me. My family largely deserted me, but Samantha was still there. And I stood up sober March 23rd of 2016, so almost 8 years ago. And I was doing well, but I couldn't quite. I went to AA, but I felt like AA just didn't work for me because it was just like I felt like it kind of glorified the past and everything was looking backwards. You had to go to AA and say, hi, I'm Moss and I'm an alcoholic. I'm like, no, I'm not. I haven't had a drink in 2 years. What am I doing here? I didn't fit in. And I oftentimes feel like I don't fit in places. So this was nothing new. So I just went off and created my own party. And that became the sober method. And on August 1st of 2020, Samantha was killed by a drunk driver. And here's someone who's sober that helped me become sober, ultimately was killed by the substance that she helped me recover from. And in that moment, I knew that I had to do something different. And she had been encouraging me to write down what I was doing before she passed away. And so I did. It took me 2 years to write the book. And then there was sentencing for her trial. The driver was convicted of reckless murder in March of last year. And I was driving back from Alabama. And I was just outside of Nashville. And, my mainline work had been in business consulting for many years. And so I'm like, okay, what am I doing with my life? And I just got into this like thought. And just north of the city, I just instantly came to me. You know what? I'm going to honor Samantha. I'm going to do this in my life. I'm going to start talking to people about sobriety. I'm going to help people get sober, and I'm going to take this all the way. This is going to be my new career for the rest of my life. And so that became my new purpose. And I really, for the first time in my life, feel like I've nailed my purpose. I'm using all the talents that I've acquired along the way in something entirely new that I'm so passionate about that I will never stop doing it. And I think that that's how you come to find your purpose. I don't think you can simply decide what your purpose is.
I
Thank
love
you.
this story. And my mom says, congratulations on sobriety.
Oh, thank you so much.
Um, you know, it's a hard journey to find your purpose. And sometimes it hits you like those moments. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's about sitting with your interests and values and passions and what you're drawn to and like the things that you you cultivate throughout your lifetime. Like sometimes it happens later in life and sometimes you just know
Yeah.
because that's the thing. Um, but what I really love about your story is like your journey is that you allowed someone to love you.
Yeah.
And in places where we're caught up and not finding the love for ourselves and not even knowing is that to allow someone to love you can be incredibly difficult and you were ready to be loved.
You said that, and I don't know if you picked up on it yourself or just from our conversation so far, but Samantha was the first person I ever allowed to love me. And that, and so it, if I had not allowed that, I probably would not have achieved sobriety. I don't think it would have happened. And that's a hard thing to do. And I did it at my most vulnerable. I had that facade up for so many years about like success and all the things that I had achieved. And that's the facade that everybody saw. That's the facade she saw when we met, but it didn't matter to her. She saw who I was and was okay with it. And you have to be very vulnerable to let that wall down. And I'm so glad I did, because it has allowed me now. I'm capable of allowing other people to see who I am.
Well, thank you, Samantha,
Yes, thank you,
for
Samantha.
making it possible for this beautiful man to be loved.
Thank you, Trish.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably today and your just your work in the world and who you're taking a stand for and what you're taking a stand for. This is exactly what we need, and I appreciate you. I appreciate all the years of challenge and struggle that you have gone through to get to this point, and just so much love to you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Um, Again, you can find Massimo on all of the social medias. It's at Sober Method, and I'm going to put in his links now so that you can go and follow him on at the organization and at his website. And I want to give a big shout out to my mom today. Hi, Mom. I love you. She's 30 years sober on March 12th.
Oh, awesome. Congratulations. That is so incredible. I'm proud of you.
I am proud of her too.
And also, I'll mention that both my books are available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, etc. So I know you're putting links up, so they'll be there as well.
All right. Thank you so much. Big shout out to you all for showing up every week, same time, same place. And a sweet, sweet love to Dawn, who's having some private family time, vacation. And thank you to our team, Roy and Russell, for just making this whole thing possible, so that we can have lives and they can have lives and that we can build a family together. They're the most wonderful team that we could have. And thank you to our mascot, Russell's daughter, Poppy. Mwah! We love you. Special thank you to Scott Katamas, Love Coach Academy, Global Peace Tribe, and for you all again for showing up for yourselves and for each other and for committing to self love. And we will see you here.